How's it going, YouTube? Coming in today with another video, and today, guys, what the bring to you is going to be an important guide to Duad. Now, this is going to be extremely crucial into the NAWCQ testing because of the fact that we have so much new support and so many new cards coming out in this set that are actually really impactful to our meta. If you haven't already checked out my sponsors over in RW, Cloud, Gem, Arla, Imperium, Dragonshield, or Grimoire, definitely go ahead and do so all down below in the description. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already subscribed. I appreciate each and every one of you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for all the support. I love the fact that I can do this for y'all and give you as much information as possible into your next event. And, you know, it really does mean the world to me to see the sub count be where it's at. You know, I have 24,000 people that enjoy what I do. That's a lot of people, and I can't wait until we hit 30,000 and beyond. So thank you, and let's hop running into the content. There's a ton of new support in this set, but let's talk about the three absolute, just no one's going to be playing these. They're really bad decks. The first one is going to be Archmage. Now, right now, it is not the greatest. It's lacking quite a lot, but I said the same thing about Plunder Patrol, and now it's my favorite rogue deck because we got the Raven, which is insane. That card is very strong, and it made me love the deck. Right now, the cards aren't necessarily bad, but what there is to do with them, not really much there. So, potentially in the future, we'll see something that's going to be really cool with the deck. We're going to be seeing a ton of new support, new waves, I'm sure. So we'll see what that deck can do. It might not be bad to just pick it up now just so you have it in case it does something. Because right now is going to be the lowest it's probably going to be, especially once they finally get like a new support announced. Just endless potential. So make sure that you at least have a core of this. It feels very reminiscent of older TCG exclusives where we see some pretty good cards and then we get like the great cards, right? So make sure that you keep an eye on this deck. Morganite, this is just like new Runic Stun. It's not going to do anything. It might get like one deep run, but that's about it. As long as you can out like a Vanity's Fiend, I'm pretty sure you'll be okay, right? So just make sure that you have like an idea of what it does, but not necessarily respecting it, because I don't really think this is something that we should be necessarily afraid of, right? It's very mid. Same with Monarch. Listen, if Lithium is in the room, this is going to be a very scary deck. If Lithium is not in the room, I'm not necessarily concerned, right? Monarch is Monarch. It's always just been Monarch. I really wish that we could play like the extra deck Monarch again and have like triple Brilliant Fusion and play that deck. That was one of my favorite decks of all time. Extra deck Monarch, bro. That was so much fun. But now, like, you might get domain locked. You could. It could happen. But I don't think that there's something that you really have to be afraid of. So these three, not going to be something that I'm necessarily afraid of at the event. If I see them by like some off chance, sure, right? But I don't think that I will. But the Automat deck, Lunalight, and Vanquish Soul, let's talk about that. Apparently, the way to make any deck good is just give it a circular, because Gem Knight got a circular and Automat got a circular. So you already know that's going to be the new way to do it. And with the new circular, it lets you make a rank 4 without playing into Droll, which is pretty fantastic. Unlimited bodies, that's in air quotes because it's not obviously not like unlimited, but this is something that is really important to note though, because of the fact that you get so many bodies. It's kind of crazy. People are playing this with like the new Zexal card. I think that card's horrible. If I'm making anything on the Utopics, I'm just making Draco Future. I think that card's just inherently better, which you can still make it, no problem. And I wouldn't just like make a Zexal instead. I don't know. I think that card's just worse. But I do like Utopic Draco Future with a deck like this, especially if you're playing it with like the Raizio cards, where you should be playing these cards. But I know, who knows? Maybe someone makes like some crazy list with this, right? But these cards are very real. They're going to be very good. And it's really cool because it's very reminiscent of when I was like growing up and seeing like all like the Gaga Magician and whatnot, because they never were particularly great. But now we have the circular and some pretty good support in the deck. So definitely cool to see. Very splashable in a lot of the rank 4 engines. Still gets FTK'd by Droll. They can make like the 1 rank 4 without Droll being a problem, but after that it's going to be an issue. They are all, for the most part, searchers once they're used as Xyz material, which is pretty crazy. So being cut off from the additional bodies does suck. Especially if they're trying to search out like Para and then you already have them under Droll. That's really unfortunate. But Para's a really good card. Also very good into Bestials because a lot of these are Earths. So it doesn't really matter if your opponent has a ton of Bestials. That's where you want DD Crow, and DD Crow is going to be very popular this format. It's going to be a very good card. And then this deck will also Ouroboros you for everything. So make sure that you are aware of that, because it's the same as Heraldic Razio, where like you will get a couple cards ripped and then they'll put up a full Razio board. Next up here is Vanquish Soul. So we already know that we have Holy Sue coming out. This card's really crazy. It represents 2 pops or a steal. So 2 pops is because once you summon Holy Sue, this is the really crazy part, right? If they're already revealing Fire Dark to someone from deck, they're going to summon Rosin to a zone that it has to blow up a monster in, right? So they're going to go ahead and use Rosin. Rosin adds Caesar and blow up a monster in that zone. Then your opponent's going to tag out the Holy Sue for Caesar. Now Caesar is a non-targeting destruction as well, because you just got the Earth back into your hand with Holy Sue, and then you already still have your Fire and your Dark. So this does represent 2 pops, or you're just using it to steal a body off your opponent's board. This deck does play Karakara, so be careful about what you activate and what you don't activate, because you could be giving your opponent free lethal on the board. Plays tons of hand traps, Bestials, Phantasme, Karakara. Anything that's a dark or a fire is really common in this deck, usually siding things like D-Shifter as well. One of the things that I think could be ideal versus this deck is Vados. This is a card that has been pretty underwhelming for a long time, but the new Vanquish Soul field spell is very good. And then having a board wipe on your opponent through a Vados as well is pretty solid. So that's something to really consider. I think this is a very cool card for this matchup, but it's something that could still be pretty cope. It just depends. This deck also plays very low to the ground. It's not going to be very explosive. It's just very consistent at what it does, and it does it every turn. So that's something where if you're not able to just outgrind a deck that can put up the same board every turn, it can get kind of worrisome for you. But again, this deck isn't going to be like super explosive, but just understand that they can summon Holy Steel on your turn, and they can get a double plop or a steal, which can be an issue. This deck also plays like the Rescue Ace, Impulse, and the Fire Attacker to draw more cards, so they're always trying to just get to more and more and more until they can actually just like flood the board with bodies even in turn 0, which is always scary. Now, as for Lunalight, this is the deck that everyone's really talking about right now. This is the really all crazy deck. SP, Baguska, 1-2 Liger Dancer, and Hound and Grave. It's a pretty menacing end board. There's a lot of ways you can go ahead and out this, but it's really going to depend on what deck you're playing and what's the most consistent way for you to out this. Plays Heavy Poly as well. That card is really crazy. Again, if you don't know what that card does, I've had it in multiple videos. Read that card. You will die immediately if they activate Heavy Poly and you don't have a game plan. Because this card, Liger Dancer, doesn't even care about Featherstorm. You can get Featherstormed, and then your opponent goes main phase 1 Heavy Poly, summon Liger Dancer, blow up your board because it's unaffected by Featherstorm, normal summon just about anything, and kill you. Out of nowhere. Because of Heavy Poly. So make sure that you have a game plan for that. That card is extremely scary. Use Droll and Lancia versus this deck. They're both very solid cards, and they will hurt the deck a lot. Side into Heavy Bestials, Imperm Gold Leo. These are things that you want to make sure that you are doing versus this deck to make sure that you don't just auto lose to it. So a few truths about this format is if you're not an Imperm, you're trolling. I feel like Imperm is so important right now, especially the fact that it doesn't play into Talent. And I know that Talent's at 1, but it's still a card that your opponent could have. And it's the same thing as, like, you know when your opponent's thinking and you can kind of tell when they have a Call by the Grave. It's still a card that's in the format and you know that everyone's maining it for the most part. So it's still something that you want to respect to a point. But I feel like Imperm, especially in things like Protos, is just something that you're going to want to have. You want an answer to things that your opponent is trying to do. And the last time that everyone took it out of their deck, everyone got Protos locked, and different things were just like running rampant because no one was playing targeting negation, which is crazy. Bestials will be everywhere. They're going to be very heavy in the main and or side, and then Fuit and Droll in the main deck are mandatory. These cards have to be played because decks are too explosive right now and you need an answer to them to shut them off early or to make the board a lot more manageable. I do have a couple lies that I've been hearing going around, and again, this is like lies, because like they are things that people do believe, but I feel like they're going to be things that are not true for the event. But my first one is going to be there's a best deck in the room. I don't think so. I think that there is a lot of different decks that can do a lot of damage right now, and if you're not prepared for them, it's going to be a rough day. There's like 5 decks right now that could equally win this event. So you want to make sure that your deck building is optimized, your deck building is wide, and that you have an answer for your worst matchup. Because it's going to be just an all-out war at Nationals this year with the different amount of decks that we have. There's a lot of people even writing off things like Blue Eyes, and I'm just like, that's kind of crazy because like that deck is doing very well right now. So we have Krishron, that's another deck that people are writing off right now, and I'm like, dude, Krishron's fire. Like, there's a lot of different things that could do very well into this event. So I'm personally very excited to play this year. I think that it's going to be a great time, and I'm very interested to see what does really well. Obviously, you know, best decks piloted by me, you know, that's going to be everyone going in there, I hope. I always hate hearing people go, you know, like, oh, I don't know, there's better players than me in this room, so I probably already lost. Please don't ever have that mentality. I want you going into the NAWCQ like, I got this. My list is fire. Like, I have the best deck in the room, right? Like, that's what I want to hear. Because if I stop hearing that, then it just shows that, you know, the confidences are low, testing wasn't done, and it's the biggest event of the year. Bring something that you're very confident with, walk in that room with the fire burning in your body, and just be ready to play some Yu-Gi-Oh! Be ready to win some matches, right? Like, that's what I want to see from everyone this year, and I think that's going to be such a fun time for the event. The next one is going to be you'll play against many different decks. Now, counter to what I just said, I think there's going to be a very strong 5 to 6 decks that are going to be very good into the room. I think that if you play anything else besides those 5 to 6 decks, you're going to have a bad time. Just because the 5 to 6 decks are just so above and beyond good that it's hard to justify to play anything else. And I don't think that you'll play against many different decks. This isn't like a YCS if you've never been at Nationals before. You could run into random decks, but most of the time, you might run into one round 1 or 2, but most times, you're going to be playing against meta all day. Like, Ryziel, Malice, Ryziel, Malice, Ryziel, right? Like, you're going to be playing against the best decks in the room all day. So make sure that you have a game plan for that. And again, you could play against something random, but more times than not, especially at Nationals, you're gonna be playing against the best decks in the room. Now for the last one, you'll only do well with Mitsu cards. I've been hearing this a lot. I don't necessarily think this is true. I think that if the amount of people that I think are going to be on Bestials and Crow, I don't think that Mitsu cards have the edge this year. Do I think that the card quality and how they're going to do is going to be above and beyond? Absolutely. They're Mitsu cards. They're really hard to play against. You have a lot of options. They flood the board. They really do extend your plays and be able to put up a board presence before your actual engine. That's fantastic, and that's exactly what you want to see out of these cards. But I don't think that you need Mitsu cards in your deck just to do well. I think that's a misconception. I hope they enjoyed today's video, and if you did, definitely go ahead and check out my Twitter, Twitch, Discord, Instagram, and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Thank you so much.